How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. That's the book we're going to be reviewing today. Let's get started. Hey folks, welcome back to my YouTube channel. As I said at the start of the video, we're going to be speaking about this book that came probably a couple of decades back, probably a few decades back, on how to win friends and influence people. So as you can see, the copy that I have is at least 20-25 years old. It was bought by my dad even before I was born, and my dad had taken a lot of little notes, and I have taken the notes. Probably I'm gonna pass it on to the future generations because this book has stood the test of time. So it's an amazing book, especially if you want to upskill yourself on the social front. But you might come back and ask me, hey, why do I even need these social skills? I'm an introvert, I like to be myself, or I'm an entrepreneur, so I don't interact with people as much as I want. I'm a techie, I want to do my own things and stuff like that. Let me tell you friends, if you're employed, if you're doing a business, you're an entrepreneur, all of us need social skills. It's just that who we interact with and what we interact kind of keeps changing. For example, if you're an entrepreneur, let's say, and you are a coder, you are from a technical background who doesn't want to kind of interact with a lot of customers, you are going to be interacting a lot with your internal stakeholders. If you're more like a person who wants to get investments, you are going to be interacting with a lot of investors. If you're a solo creator or you're a content creator who wants to make money through content creation, you are going to be interacting with a lot of people on the internet. And the basis for all this, to ensure that you make enough money, ensure that you are doing well in your life, social skills are far more important, right? So there is never a question of whether it is important. It's always about how important it is and how we can upskill ourselves. So all that argument around social skills are not important, I'm just going to focus on my work, because work will get you only so far. As Dale Carnegie says in this book, most of your financial success boils down to 15% of knowledge and 85% of expressing your ideas and ensuring that a lot more people end up liking it. And this book exactly teaches you that. So how are we going to speak about being likable and influencing other people? I'm going to speak about it on three fronts. One, being a nicer person. The second aspect, we're going to be speaking about it, how to be more likable. And the third aspect is being more human. So I'm going to discuss various tactics around being a nicer person, ensuring that you become a lot more likable, and how can you be genuine by doing these both things. So the first aspect, being a nicer person. The first step the author opens this book is by speaking about not criticizing others. So that's the first lesson, because more often than not, when you're criticizing someone, you're not criticizing their idea, even though that's what we like to think, that hey, I am being very, very objective, I'm just criticizing X person's idea. What you're really doing is you're playing with their ego. They have these little egos that, oh my god, it's my idea, it's a great idea, I'm gonna be pitching it to, let's say, Praveen or Jamie or whoever it is, and you burst their bubble, you're playing with their ego, and all they're going to do is, two possible outcomes. Either they are going to hate you for the rest of their lives because you burst their bubble, or you're never encouraging them to come up with an idea like this again. So always remember, friends, for you to be more likable, you have to ensure that you're not criticizing another person, because you're always playing with their ego. But that begs the question about how do you kind of disagree with some grace, right? Which brings me to the second tip about disagreeing more specifically. Whereas what we end up doing when we don't like an idea, or we don't align with someone's ideology, or we don't end up liking an idea, is we directly go and say, what, this idea might not work. Oh, this is why I feel it might not work, and things like that. So the first thing to do is, there is a portion of that idea that you should be feeling that, hey, it's credible, or it's new, or has blown your mind, right? So first start with appreciating that idea and talk about specific things that you don't like it, rather than brushing off that idea completely. And why do I say this? Because more often than not, in argument, or while you're criticizing the other person, it becomes fact versus fact, fact versus fact, fact versus fact, and it generally doesn't lead to any fruitful outcomes. In order for you to ensure that the other person is liking you, one, don't criticize them, and secondly, if you're disagreeing with someone, do so in a respectful way, to ensure that you're not rubbing anyone off in their wrong side, right? So those are the first two tips. Now moving on to the section, where we're going to be speaking about how to become a more likable person. So in order for you to become likable, the first thing the author speaks about in this book, and I would say if there is one thing that you need to take away from this book, is to encourage others to talk. Right, so that is the first step in ensuring that others start liking you. Why does that always work like magic? So I try to look back at my own life. So I have a few friends, I have a few of my family folks that I love speaking with. And the thing that I realized about why I like speaking with these people is they ask me very specific questions around things that I like, which is content creation, which is about fitness, or my fitness regimes, or my food regimes and things like that. So they ask and seek information about things that I really love. And what do I end up doing? I speak hours and hours and hours about this. So I encourage you to look at yourself. Who are your close friends? Who are the people that you like interacting with at your office? Who are the kind of people you like interacting with in a social setting? And I'm sure the common thread between all of these is you have a common interest with them, and you get an equal opportunity to speak in that setup, right? So none of us like to be spoken over, or none of us like to be like, I say 2 sentences and immediately the other person takes over. None of us like to be in that kind of an environment. So if you are in a social setting where you don't know what to speak, or how to be interacting with people, or what should I do, always ask for other person's interest, always ask for their passion, always ask about their hobbies and things like that, and try to probe more about, oh, that sounds interesting, what is it that, can you elaborate a bit more on this, and those sort of things. You're encouraging them to talk, and they're far more likely to ensure that they like you and they remember you, because you made them speak about things that they like. So that's the third tip overall. The fourth tip, make the other person feel important. Right, so that's the fourth tip, where how do you ensure that the other person feels important. So Dale Carnegie again speaks about a lot of the hacks, but some of the things that I like were remembering their name, right? So this is something that I started practicing very, very actively recently, where in order for me to remember the name, I try and repeat their name. So let's say I'm speaking to Steve. I say, "Oh, Steve, that's a great point. Steve, I have also thought about it this way." So what I end up doing subconsciously is I'm repeating their names so many times that it kind of registers in my head. So that's one thing that you could do to make them feel important. Second thing, always keep nodding and look into their eyes, because the worst thing you can do when you're speaking with someone is to pick up a phone, or look elsewhere, or look at the food that's being served there, or get curious with another conversation that's happening. That's so disrespectful and is a short way to ensure that people don't like you. So second thing is to maintain eye contact and not like you're paying full attention, which you should be doing. And third thing, ask them very specific things about what they like, right? Because again, the more you encourage them to talk by telling their names and looking into their eyes, they feel very, very, very important, and in return you become more likable for them, because all of us are social creatures and all of us are seeking validation, and by you giving that validation in abundance to the other person, you're always going to ensure that the other person likes you, right? And the fifth tip that I picked up from this book, especially useful in workplaces, is to ensure that you make your ideas someone else's. So imagine 2 scenarios. Scenario A, where you're with a group of people, you're telling them, "Hey folks, this is the idea, I want you to execute it." Whereas scenario B, where you're telling people that, "Hey folks, this is what I'm thinking about this idea, but I want all of you to pitch in," right? And then everyone pitches in, gives their ideas, and then you folks brainstorm, and then finally you arrive at an operational plan. Which one do you think is more likely to succeed? Without blinking an eye, I could tell you that plan B is going to be successful. Why? Because even though the base idea might be yours, you have ensured that you have crowdsourced ideas from multiple people and made your idea theirs, right? And what should you do in such social setting? So if someone has come up with a great, let's say a nuanced way of executing this idea, appreciate them very specifically and in a public way, in a public forum. If someone is coming with an idea that's kind of polar opposite to what you were thinking, acknowledge that, hey, it's a great idea, but this is what I was thinking. So have a very civil argument slash conversation before you kind of lock in the complete execution plan and start executing. So by doing this, you're doing two things. One, you're ensuring that your idea is everyone else's, and you've kind of appreciated or had a conversation, appreciated about things that you agree, and had a conversation about things you don't agree in a civil way, and ensure that now you have an airtight idea, right? So this is far better as opposed to saying, you know what, I know it all, I figured this out, your job is to just go and execute it. I can tell you, even though you might get the work done, 5 out of 6 people executing those ideas might not like you. So in order for you to be more likable, 3 things to keep in mind. Make the other person feel important by maintaining eye contact, telling their name, and paying full attention to what they want to say. Ask them questions around what they really like. And third thing, make your ideas theirs by collaborating well with them and appreciating them specifically and disagreeing with respect. By doing these 3 things, you're going to ensure that a lot more people get to like you in a social setting. Now moving on to the last 2 tips, which is being more human. So a lot of times what happens is, with all these tips, I found myself in a lot of situations where I was kind of being a little fake, or I didn't know what to appreciate the other person for and things like that. And trust me friends, when you're in such situations, the other person is going to easily find out. So the first thing to do to be more human is, let's say you are in a situation where you don't like other person's idea, or you feel like maybe you don't have specific things to praise about their idea or what they've come up with, but you feel like you want to criticize them. The easiest way to do it is to share your own vulnerability, because none of us are superman or superwoman that we have had only success in our lives. You would have had your fair share of failures, or you could have been in the same situation as the other person is in currently, right, from a professional or a personal front. So before you criticize, you could be like, hey, I was in the same situation a couple of years ago, here is how I handled it. So the easiest way to ensure that people open up to you is by sharing your vulnerability, if you have one. So the moment you're fake, trust me friends, the other person is going to find out. So a big part of being human is sharing your vulnerability. And second thing is, be very genuinely interested in the other person, right? Because all these 6 tips that we kind of discussed above are going to fail the moment you're not genuine about them, right? So what happens when you're not genuine? You might say, hey, you know what, I like this, I like that, and things like that. So being very genuine needs you to put in a lot of effort, needs you to be very mindful about what the other person is doing, what the other person is talking, how is their body language, what ticks them off in the right way, what are they genuinely interested in. So it makes you genuinely interested in the other person, and when you want to appreciate or you want to disagree very respectfully, you will end up doing it in a way that is very likable for them. So be very genuinely interested rather than having a very surface level conversation. So that sums up my 7 big ideas that I had around how to win friends and influence people. And I personally spoke about a lot of experiences and things that I implement in my life. I hope you enjoyed this book review, and I'm really hoping you end up picking up this book after seeing my review. Until I see you in the next video, this is Praveen Ramesh signing off.